Spread decks are back with Weezing and Twin Energy. Welcome back everyone to more from the Sableyes. I'm Mitch and today we're going to be taking a look at a one prize attacking deck, a spread damage deck which we haven't seen for a long time. The last time we looked at one like this would have been way back at the Tapu Koko Flying Flip days, which was a long time ago now. This is Detention Gas Weezing, and it's a pretty solid card that has been given new life thanks to Twin Energy from Rebel Clash. What we'll do is we will jump over to PTCGO to take a look at the list, but if you like this kind of content and you want to see more, we've had lots of new people coming to the channel very recently. If you want to subscribe, that would be great. We'd really appreciate it. Give the video a like, and apart from that, we'll jump into the list right now. So here we go, 60 cards to show off Detention Gas Weezing. This card is an excellent spread Pokemon, and the only reason we haven't seen more of it recently is because it has not had a consistent way to attack. Now, Splattering Sludge is the attack we're going to be using. It does 40 for a double colorless energy, and it does 20 damage to each of your opponent's benched Pokemon if they have damage counters on them already. So what we can do is we can do 40 to the active. Any Pokemon on the bench that have damage counters get an extra 20 on them as well, and that can very quickly add up. And the way we're going to try and get damage counters onto those bench Pokemon is through the ability Detention Gas, which you can see here. As long as this Pokemon is in your active, then you get to put one damage counter on each of your opponent's basic Pokemon between turns. Now, let's think about all of the top decks in the format. We've got Pikarom, it's mostly basic Pokemon. AB Zacian, that's all basic Pokemon. I guess we've got what, Dragapult VMAX, it's got some basic Pokemon, but mainly it's got those big boys, the Dragapult VMAXs, that's okay. And yeah, Baby Blacephalon, again, as all basic Pokemon. So if we look at the top 4 decks in the format, only one of them isn't going to have a hard time dealing with this particular ability, which is why I really like it. It's going to give us an opportunity to spread a lot of damage around. The list obviously built around Weezing. We've got a 4/4 line, then we've got a ton of other Pokemon that we can use to try and get damage onto the field. Things like Giratina with Distortion Door. If we discard that and bring it from the discard to the bench, we can put 2 damage counters on any of our opponent's Pokemon on the bench, which would be great. We've got Mimikyu in order to use Copycat. If someone uses a big attack, we can hit into them with Copycat. We've got Psychic Energy and we've got Counter Gain, so we'll be able to get that attack going off. And if anyone ever gets us down to 3 prizes remaining, so if our opponent takes 3 prizes, we can put Baby Blacephalon in the active, attach a Psychic, attach a Counter Gain, and put 12 damage counters on the field. And so with each of these interesting cards, we can set up some really big plays where Weezing, just being in the active, can take a ton of knockouts. Now, obviously there are a few problems with this style list. There's no Dedenne, so if things go very poorly, we won't be able to find our supporters as well as we'd like, but we do have Jirachi, so we should be a-okay to find something. It's just a matter of hoping for the best. Now, we won't talk about all of the cards in this list. I'll talk about a couple of specific ones. Lana's Fishing Rod is one that is very interesting. Why are we playing this over Ordinary Rod? Ordinary Rod is clearly the better card, but in this instance, Lana's Fishing Rod is really strong because we have 8 items that we can attach to our Pokemon that are really strong that we want to get into play as often as possible. Now we've got 4 Spell Tag to be able to deal a little bit of extra spread damage every time they knock out one of our Weezing with a Spell Tag attached. We will be able to put 4 damage counters on our opponent's side of the field. We've got Escape Boards, obviously running with Jirachi is a big deal, and we've also got those Counter Gains. So if we lose a Counter Gain early, we can bring it back with Lana's Fishing Rod as well as a Pokemon of our choice. So that's pretty good, or we can just get ourselves an extra Spell Tag off, which is also excellent. We also have Shrine of Punishment as our stadium of choice to try and get some extra damage counters onto those Tag Team GX Pokemon that are floating around at the moment. That means we can get some free damage counters off, means Weezing is going to be live earlier and more often, which is always really good. Supporter line is very generic. We've got 2 Boss, 3 Marnie, and 4 Research. Nothing much to talk about there. And the energy line, I think, is super interesting as well. Obviously, Twin Energy is the thing that gives this deck a little bit of life. We can attach this Twin Energy and just attack with Weezing, which is fantastic. But we can also use Horror Psychic Energy as our Psychic Energy cost. This, in combination with Counter Gain, means that if they choose to attack into us, they're going to take some damage, and we can always accelerate our win condition by attaching 1 energy instead of 2, which would be very, very good for us. Lots of cards here, lots of interesting cards. What we're going to do is we're going to take this one out onto the ladder and we'll see if it's worth its salt. I like it. I think it's really good, and I hope that you enjoy. So we've got ourselves a game here. This one is brought to you by a friend of the channel, Steph Barno, which is the account name that we are using down the bottom. He's been gracefully recording some games for us, which is really greatly appreciated. Things are pretty hectic at the moment, so we're going to try and get some games going for you. Then you might see some different account names. That's okay, it's all people from the Sable Eyes, and this hand looks decent. We've got ourselves a Mew, we've got Marnie, we've got Research, we've got all the things that we would need to get going in this game, plus a Ditto as well. It's just disappointing that we didn't manage to find ourselves a Jirachi. Looks like we're going to be going up against some sort of colossal deck here. They've got some fire energy in their mulligan hand. And there is that Jirachi. It would have been much better if we were able to actually get into that a little bit earlier. But it's okay. We should be fine. Roly-Coly in the active here with Ram for 10. 70 HP seems pretty acceptable to me. Now, one of the problems with this is going to be that we are not going to be able to get that spread damage with our Weezings off on Colossal. So once they're in play, there's only so much that we can realistically do. We're going to want to try and get knockouts on these Roly-Colys as quick as we can. The quicker we do it, the better off we will be. Our opponent has 2 Roly-Coly now, so they are set up and ready to go. As long as they've got something which they can switch into, or a supporter that they can play, that seems fine. A Jirachi looks like a pretty good option. You can put that down, potentially switch into it. Maybe they got a supporter that they could potentially play, although it is the first turn. They're probably not going to play a supporter on their first turn. They'd need to have a switch. At the moment, it doesn't look like they're going to be playing it. They're probably sitting by. Yeah, no, it looks like just a pass. So we now are in the box seat here. What we can do is we can play this Ditto down. That's going to be one of our Weezings. We can attach the Escape Board to the Jirachi or the Mew here. And it's a little bit tough because obviously the Mew guarantees that we get into the Jirachi, which is fine. You could attach to the Jirachi and just hope for the best. Personally, the Mew seems like a pretty good call here. We can always just go into the Jirachi and find another switch next turn. And this looks like a solid hand. Like, we've got 2 Koffings here. We could put one of them down. We've got Twin Energy as well that we could always attach. We're going to retreat here into Jirachi. And then Stellar Wish, we could find the switch here. That's good. That means we're going to potentially be able to switch into whatever we like next turn. We've got 2 Koffings on the bench. We're set and ready to go. We don't really need to play any more cards. We could attach this Twin Energy. I'm thinking probably if we're going to, it would be best to attach it to the Koffing that has that spell tag attached. So if our opponent does somehow gust and knock it out, we can at least play some damage counters. And then a pass, we've got the switch, we've got the research, we've got quick ball just in case. Everything looks pretty solid and in order, so we are going to be in a pretty good spot here. Our opponent getting rid of a Colossal for a Carcol here, so they're not in a great spot. Unlike us, we seem to be doing relatively well. They've got the Dene though, so that is good. It's good as well because we're going to get Shrine of Punishment used up with that particular Dene. The Ninetales obviously could have been frightening as well, although the spread damage isn't going to be that big of a deal if they did choose to use it. So, what's that? 3 basics on our opponent's side of the field plus Carcol. So we're not going to be able to get some spread damage with Weezing on that particular Pokemon, but we will be able to get some on the others, presuming that everything goes well. One of the bad things that's happened with that extra Koffing on the bench is that we can't actually get into the Giratina next turn unless our opponent takes a knockout. There's an interesting inclusion. Entei in a Colossal deck. I haven't seen that one before. It's a good idea to be able to use Rally back. I think it's for 120 or something like that. So that's potentially a good inclusion in that deck if you are playing it. Looks like they're going for Shuckle here, so they're going to put a few of their energies from their deck into the discard pile, or potentially they could just be looking at discarding that Shuckle, and there is the Professor's Research. So they'll get rid of that one. There's lots of good cards in that hand. I feel like our opponent is missing, though, quite a few key cards. They need the rare candy into the Colossal, obviously, but they're also missing an attacker. At the moment, they haven't managed to find one, so we're going to be lucky and good pretty much as long as our opponent doesn't find it. We've got the Jirachi and the Switch, so if they don't take a knockout, we can Stellar Wish and then switch. If they do, we're fine. We've got the research. We've got pretty much everything that we need, and that Sandaconda V is going to be a bit of a pain for us. Looks like they are going to be scooping that that roly-coly up here. And what they go into is going to be another question. They could go for Jirachi, but there is always the risk that Jirachi gets knocked out. They do, of course, find the Stellar Wish with that, so it's probably not a bad idea. We're going to be doing 40 damage to it minimum if we find a Weezing next turn, so that seems pretty good. Plus the 10 as well. So they're going to grab Research. That seems like an awesome card for them. But they're not going to be able to do anything else here. They're just going to have to pass. Alright, so we've got access to pretty much everything that we need. We've got Shrine of Punishment, which we're probably going to play down. But first we'll take a look at the Stellar Wish. Well, there's a lot of good options here. I think the Spell Tag is a good call. We could have gone for Marnie to try and maybe put a little bit of pressure on our opponent, but I don't think that we need to. I think we can just grab this Spell Tag. We'll play down the Shrine. Retreat, use the Switch to go into the Koffing with the energy. We could have potentially gone into the Mew there, just in case we didn't get access to the Koffing, but I think we should, so the Weezing, sorry, I think we should be fine. Not going to need Mew in this matchup, we've already got one, so we'll get rid of that with the research, and all we need is a Weezing. There we have one, and the best part here is not only do we have the Weezing, but we also have access to a second Weezing, so we can attach this Horror Psychic maybe to the Mimikyu in preparation for that Sandaconda, just in case. We could have used the Mysterious Treasure to find another Weezing if there was a knockout, but unfortunately for us, we don't go for it. We've got the Shrine tick, we've got the Detention Gas tick, we've got the extra damage going down. We're looking like we're in a pretty strong spot. Now all we need to do is hope that our Weezing survives, but even if it doesn't, we can knock out the Jirachi with our Spell Tag damage, so that's pretty good to me. Here is the Colossal, so things are heating up on our opponent's side of the field. They've actually managed to find two of them. So now they're going to be able to accelerate a ton of energy, and they're getting rid of our Shrine as well, and they've got the Research, so they've got pretty much everything that they need to get a massive turn off here. We could be punished for not finding that extra Weezing to try and get that extra tick of damage, but they do need to still switch out of the active, so it's not the end of the world. This Stellar Wish could potentially be really big for them, although they are just going for the manual retreat, which is fair enough. They can attach multiple energies with Colossal, so why not? They're going to be looking for Sand Breath here. 220 damage is going to be more than enough, but we've got the Mimikyu set up, we've got the counter gain in hand. If they do go for it, then we can just return the knockout. So that seems really, really strong to me. I'd be relatively happy to do that. And even though we're playing a Weezing deck, we're actually going to take our first couple of prizes here with Mimikyu, I think. Unless, of course, something crazy happens. The Colossal uses Tar Generator again, that's the second one. Going to be accelerating one of the fire energies to the Colossal, actually, and then onto the Sandaconda. So they've taken the knockout, they're going to put... they're going to take the... What am I talking about? They're going to remove their energy. We've got the Shrine... not the Shrine ticks. What is going on? I cannot speak. We have the Spell Tag ticks. We're going to put one onto the Colossal. We're going to put two onto the Jirachi and one on the Sandaconda. Just so that when we eventually get ourselves another Weezing, we can utilize them a little bit. We had Switch in hand, so it was safe to promote the Jirachi, but we've grabbed the Escape Board as well. So now we're in a position where we can actually go, okay, we're going to get rid of this Switch. We're going to find ourselves another Weezing, which is really good. We can evolve that up straight away. We're probably going to play down the counter gain onto the Mimikyu, and then we can just Marnie and force our opponent to draw a few less cards. I guess the question is, do you Stellar Wish beforehand? Personally, I'm a big believer in using Stellar Wish afterwards. We're going to check and see this Blacephalon as well. We could put the counter gain on the Blacephalon, but it's probably not worth it. I'd rather see that one go onto the Mimikyu here, and then as well the Marnie seems like it's probably a card that should be played before we Stellar Wish, so we'll go with the Marnie. That seems like a good play to me, and hey, this is perfect. We've got another Weezing to evolve the Ditto into, and a second Horror Psychic Energy, so if we'd like, we can attach the Counter Gain to the Mimikyu and the Horror Psychic to the Weezing, or we can just attack the Horror Psychic to the Mimikyu, get the most value. We can even Stellar Wish here. What are we going to find? We're going to find ourselves a Spell Tag as well. Maybe Mysterious Treasure, or even this Lana's Fishing Rod. So that is perfectly acceptable. We are going to use this Switch, maybe? We don't need to use the Switch. We can just retreat with Escape Board, but, you know, why not use the cards whilst we've got them. And let's Splattering Sludge here. We're going to do a ton of damage. We're going to take a knockout on the Jirachi on the bench, which I'm happy about. Going to spread some of that damage around. And we'll take ourselves a prize. We're going to see a couple of ticks here. Not as many as we would like. But hey, it's a-okay from my point of view. I'm feeling pretty good. If our opponent does choose to take a knockout on us this turn, they will take 20 damage because of that Horror Psychic Energy. We can go back into the Jirachi again. We've got pretty much everything that we need. Although now we are going to be looking for an energy as well. So this Mimikyu on the bench will come up at some point. It's just a matter of when. And it looks like they're powering up their Colossal here to potentially get themselves an attack with a one prize attacker, which I think is really interesting. It's a good idea to have those backup plays. Might have been worth putting some of those energies onto the second Sandaconda though. There's Sand Breath, so they're going to take 20 damage because of our Horror Psychic Energy, but they will have to discard their energy first. We'll probably go into the Jirachi, and we'll just keep cycling around here. Hopefully we can find ourselves either an energy with which to attack, or a supporter to draw some cards. So, looking pretty solid. We'll see how we go. Lana's Fishing Rod off of the top, so we probably won't play those first. We'll just use the Stellar Wish. We'll see what we can find. Looks like here there's actually nothing much doing for us, which is quite frustrating. Because realistically, if we had that energy on the counter gain, on the Mimikyu last turn, we would have taken a couple of prizes instead. I don't think there's anything that we can realistically expect to do here, apart from just attach a spell tag to maybe a Pokemon that we don't want to keep, and then move on from there. We might be able to create a little bit of a disturbance by bosses ordering out one of those Pokemon, but this is actually a really disappointing position to be in. We were in such a strong spot, and to miss that supporter of the Jirachi is really upsetting. At this point, though, we probably put the Weezing and another counter gain back in with the Lana's Fishing Rod. We've got the second one, so we can always grab another back. I'm thinking we could choose to just go into Mimikyu and Filch here. That's not the worst decision in the world. Wouldn't say it's great, but it's okay. I think we're kind of in this weird spot where, realistically, if we retreat into anything, it's pretty bad. The best thing we can probably do is chuck up this Weezing, gust up something, maybe we can gust up the Colossal, or just pass and put some damage down with the Weezing and hope for the best. I mean, if they do knock us out, which they're likely to do, then we'll be able to potentially deal some damage with the tag. But no, looks like they're actually going to gust out the Blacephalon here. That's really annoying, because not only do we now not get to use the Blacephalon next turn, which would have been really strong, but we also don't get to place those damage counters, which I wanted to do with that spell tag. It's okay, it's going to be fine. There's Sand Breathing again. If you're looking for a Colossal deck that's supposed to work and it's working well, this one's doing exactly what it's supposed to do, but I still feel like we're in a pretty strong spot. We promote the Jirachi here, we get ourselves another chance to take a look for some cards. Hey, a research, that's perfect. Now we can potentially use Lana's Fishing Rod, we can research, we can Jirachi. All we're doing is looking for an energy or a counter gain to attack with that Mimikyu. We'll see how we go. At the moment, I'm feeling pretty good. Looks like we're gearing up for that Lana's Fishing Rod. We'll probably put ourselves the Blacephalon back in, just in case. And we can grab the counter gain back as well. So those cards are now active for us after we use Professor's Research. Again, it comes down to, do we use Jirachi first, or do we use Professor's Research? Looks like the Stellar Wish is going here, and that's really disappointing. We've got the counter gain off of the top. I guess we can attach that to the Mimikyu, though, so that is a-okay. It's not a problem for us. We'll retreat into that Mimikyu, and we can either choose to research, or we can use Boss's Orders, actually, which is a big deal, to take a knockout on this other Sandaconda. So, no real reason to play that boss in the end, but 220 damage seems pretty good. We'll discard our energy, and take 2 prizes. We'll see what we can get off of them. We've got Twin Energy, which is really good, and we've got Switch. So now what we can do is we can actually promote the Weezing next turn and get some ticks off of that damage before using Twin Energy to declare our Splattering Sludge attack. There's the Entei with Rally Back. It's in the field. It's also got Fire Main. I don't know what that attack is really used for, if anything. But they could be going for the Rally Back here, or they could just go for the Sand Breath. Like, it's perfectly acceptable to just use that attack. So we'll wait and see. They're still powering up that Colossal though, which is really interesting. They're obviously expecting to use it at some point. Looks like the Sand Breath is going to be the attack of choice here. We're in a position as well where that Dedenne is actually getting pretty close to being knocked out as well. If we can get some solid solid spread damage on that Dedenne over the next couple of turns, we could be in the clear. So what we'll do is we'll promote the Weezing. That'll allow us to get some ticks in between. And now all of our spread damage is going to be a lot better. And we're going to quick ball off the top as well. So I'm thinking here we're going to Twin Energy to the active. We're going to quick ball away the Switch. Maybe find ourselves another Pokemon. And then we can use Research to draw ourselves a few cards. The question is though, is it worth using Giratina in the discard pile to get some extra ticks in? Maybe. We haven't used it yet. We have the space. We could even use the Switch to switch into Jirachi, which isn't a horrible idea, because then we can at least use that after our research and get ourselves an extra card if we need them. But hey, these are absolutely perfect. We've got ourselves another Weezing. We can Stellar Wish. We've got ourselves a Spell Tag, which is great. We've got Mysterious Treasure as well. Maybe we could use that. We've got actually one in hand, so we don't need to. We can chuck down our second or third Koffing if we'd like, and attach a spell tag to that too. But for the moment, I think Splattering Sludge is pretty much all that is required. I'm going to spread a ton of damage around here, and I think we're only actually a few turns away from getting the win in this game. We do need another Twin Energy to attack with a Weezing, but we're looking pretty good. They're scooping up one of their Pokemon, maybe going for the Entei here, and that's fair enough. They want to get rid of the damage off of that, but we are only really interested in this Sandaconda and the Dedenne on the bench, so that doesn't really matter to us. If we can get 60 damage on the Dedenne and 70 damage on the Sandaconda, we will be set and ready to go. If they do choose to take a knockout on this Weezing, as long as we find ourselves another attack, we realistically should be able to get ourselves the win here. So feeling pretty strong, like a strong spot. They do need to take one more prize after this though, so we will have to win next turn. And it looks like they are actually just going to go for the Sand Breath, which will mean that we can potentially put down some damage counters on Dedenne, maybe even some on Sandaconda. That will lead us to winning this game if we get the energy. So Sand Breath, here it comes. We're going to be able to place these spell tag counters. Now there's 70 HP left on the active. There's 60 left on the Dedenne. We are going to be able to do, I think, maybe 50 or 40. I can't remember exactly what the maths is. What we'll do is we'll put 30 onto the bench Dedenne and then 10 onto the active. This means if we promote our Weezing here, we're going to get another 10 tick, which will be a knockout on our Dedenne if we get one. And we've got this Horror Psychic. That's not what we're looking for. We might need to do some thinning here. We'll get rid of, I guess, the Horror Psychic. There's no point in having that. Let's grab out the Blacephalon. Let's double check. There are 2 Twin Energy in deck, and we have 8 cards left. So if we quick ball away here another one of our cards, we'll have 7 cards left in deck. We're going to Marnie. Unless the last 2 cards are those Twin Energies, we realistically should win this game here. So we'll Marnie. We'll see what we get. All we need is the Twin. We get them both. So now we can attach one of those to the Weezing, and then we will declare Splattering Sludge for game. Not perfect maths here, because we could have realistically done some more efficient stuff with our Giratina if we had a thought about it, but the extra 10 will tick on the Sandaconda. There's the game. Weezing doing it in the clutch moments. So thank you very much to Stefan for recording that game for us. It's always interesting to watch new people jump on board with the channel, and hopefully you have enjoyed the gameplay and the content. We're going to be looking at getting some more people involved in playing games, because like I said at the beginning of the video, it's absolutely crazy in life at the moment, as everyone knows, and it's getting more and more difficult to record a video every game. But to make sure that we've got something for you, we'll get other people on board to record some content as well. Thank you very much everyone for coming along and checking out this deck profile. If you've liked it and you'd like to see more, then if you haven't already, consider subscribing. There's a button just about here that you can click. Over here there are some videos that YouTube thinks you'll like, as well as down the bottom, bang, there's a playlist for more of our Rebel Clash deck profiles and matchups. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at @thesableize_YT, and apart from that, thank you everyone for coming along. I'm just going to move myself into the middle. See you all next time. Bye.